You're listening to Radigan's RockCast, a series focused on talking about music from the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and even current. Now, here's your host, Tom Radigan.
Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome to the first edition of Radigan's RockCast. Now, for those who see me on YouTube and all that stuff, I've already done a few editions, but this is my first time doing this as an actual podcast. Now, I know, of course, my friends have joked with me, the other things I do, like the series, like, oh, that's a podcast too, but I wanted this to be right, and I felt like, because a podcast, it's, I feel like you want to do it to a good element and all that stuff. And for this one, this is more about, even though I interview musicians, this is more about me talking about the passion I have of music and the love I have of it. Music is part of my life. It's one of the biggest things that, really has changed me and has made me the person I am today through listening to stuff like whether it's the Beatles, Creedence Clearwater Revival, Grateful Dead, Elvis, Buddy Holly. So with that little meet and greet out of the way, let's go into a little bit of the topics for what I want to talk about today. So I've talked about on my YouTube channel, if you've watched my videos before, I've talked about the groups that I've been getting into lately this summer, and this whole year basically is the group, of course, simply just named The Band, and Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young. Now, for this episode, we are going to do top 10 lists of, the band songs, top 10 songs from the band. And in the next edition, we will talk about top 10 songs from Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young. So, without further ado, let's go into the list of my favorite songs from the band. Now, things I will mention is that most of these songs are from their first two albums. There will be one song that is from a later album, but a lot of the songs on their first two albums were, that was it. Those were the hits. I mean, not that they didn't have other songs on their other albums that they did, but, this was really more of what worked for them. And, I think the sun went down. Oh, it's all right. For those who, are just listening, I think the sun in my room, went cloudy or something. I don't know. But, let's go into it. So, instead of doing it's funny. I was debating to do a top 10 list or a top, because I was trying to think of, specific songs, and I had to include one, so instead of doing a top 10, I want to change that. We are going to change that on the spot, people. That is how I roll, honestly, so this is how I roll. So, we're going to go top 11. And, because, what, let's go a little bit of a step beyond. There's more than just 10. Why limit ourselves? So I picked it down to 11 great songs from the band. And I'm doing that the same with the Crosby, Stills, and Nash & Young thing, too. For number 11, we've got Jamaica Surrender, basically on their second album, which is self-titled, called, of course, The Band. And Jamaica Surrender is with the great Levon Helm on vocals. It's a great, rock and rhythm track. Interesting fact about this is that Levon Helm, of course, was the drummer of the group, but for this he decided to play guitar, and Richard Manuel, who played piano, played the drums on this. And that happened a few times when the roles reversed, where Richard Manuel would play the drums and Levon Helm would do more of a guitar. And because the lineup, of course, of the band was, Rick Danko on bass, Robbie Robertson on guitar, Richard Manuel on piano, Levon Helm on drums, and Garth Hudson on organ, and all that. For the band, we got Jamaica Surrender. It's a really great rhythm track and all that. Very good, very, on the dot, that good, jamming, bass line, Levon, like I said, Levon sings a pretty good tune. Levon is really always great. The backing vocals between, Rick Danko and also, too, Richard Manuel, they were the guys that did the harmonies of the group, The three vocalists of the group were always Rick Danko, Richard Manuel, and Levon Helm. They were just, and Rick Danko, of course, has, a chance to do his own vocals and lead stuff. But he was really just a good backup singer too for for songs that Levon did and Richard Manuel did too, because they were known more as the lead singers, but Rick Danko also sang. But yeah, no. So we've got that one, and okay. I've got to notice that my battery is low on my laptop, so I will charge that on the spot. We're doing this live. We are doing this live, people. You're gonna not see this live, but I'm doing this live for you people. That's how I roll. So we're gonna just charge it in the plug. This will be like the spot for our little like advertisement, because I'm not that famous yet, so I can't do those advertisements. But this charging thing will be a good ad, because I'm stalling you for all this stuff. And so let's just power that sucker right in. And here we go. This is how I roll, people. This is how I roll. Love it or hate it. Okay. All right, let's see. Oh, right. I got to put the plug in too. That's a whole thing with the steps of this stuff, Very, very complicated stuff, huh? All right. Let's go. Okay. And we've powered it in. Of course, I think we might have got a little bit of a static there, but hey, why not? Why don't we roll on with the show and get back to it? So that was our little ad going into our 11. So now we got to break down to the top 10. So coming at number 10, we've got Ophelia. This was from their later album, Northern Lights, Southern Cross. And, so this came out in 1975, and this was one of their last albums before they broke up, and all that. And it's funny, because Ophelia, it's like for a while, they weren't as commercial as they once were, with the album's music from Big Pink and, the band. But Ophelia kind of goes back to their roots of a song from, what they did on those first two records. Levon Helm, of course, sings it great. If you really want to see a good performance of him doing it, watch The Last Waltz, which is the documentary of the band, which was their final concert, recorded and directed by Martin Scorsese. It's a great film. It's funny and all that stuff. Of course, it's got a little controversy from the guys that claim that it was more of Robbie Robertson's vision, and that Robbie Robertson kind of made himself seem like he was the leader, and and all that stuff, which they all were. Nobody was the leader. It was all five of them. They all had this special unit in this part for the group and all that. But let's go. Let's talk about Ophelia. So in that scene, but in that in the Last Waltz, if you watch Levon Helm drumming, he's belting out Ophelia and all that stuff, and it's a great tune too. It's very snazzy. Got a little bit of that horns in the beginning of it. Great tune by Robertson. Of course, there's more of a contribution with Levon, and all that stuff. The reason why it's called Ophelia, because of course there's a few things about Ophelia. Ophelia also, I think, leads to, always talked about heroin, because, of course, drugs and music at that time were big and all that. But, not just that, but, Ophelia, Robbie Robertson, the way he described it was that he said it was just such an uncommon name, and he always liked the sound of it, and that's why he used it in the song. And also, of course, it was famously used in Hamlet, that name. But, one of a very snazzy tune. I think definitely one of the band's signature songs. Definitely, I think, brought back that feel. When the band released that album. For a while they weren't releasing original material. They were still doing stuff, but they released a cover album. They did an album with Bob Dylan and all that, but they weren't releasing anything original for about a few years. And this kind of song brings back okay, they still got it. They still have the magic, these five guys can still play and still touch the heartstrings of millions. So coming at number 9, we've got the song that started off the band album, which was Across the Great Divide. And Across the Great Divide is sung by piano player Richard Manuel. And Richard Manuel, has a great, like, he can do, like, a falsetto or just sing in a regular voice, too. I mean, some people compared him to, like, Ray Charles the way when he would sing, like, in a low voice and all that stuff. So he doesn't do falsetto on this one. We're going to get to a song that he does falsetto, which is also a big one that is on this list. But Across the Great Divide is a great way to start off the album. And, it starts off with especially these, kind of, like, unusual lyrics. And it just starts off like standing by your window in pain, which starts off the story of that album, which kind of led to more of a concept type of thing, where basically the singer in the song is describing that his wife has got a gun and she's gonna kill him, and and he goes like honey, what you done with the gun, and I beg you dear Molly girl, and all that stuff, and it's great, like. It's an interesting type of story, and I think this song represents the band's effort of storytelling. A lot of their songs were like mental movies in their head. In your head. Like that's a lot of like characters were in their songs and all that stuff. So definitely a great way to open up the album. I think it's one of the best album openers of theirs and all that stuff. It was a great way to give it that whole album a bang. And of course every other song on that album is great. There even is a compilation album with it called Across the Great Divide, which I think is a good title for a compilation album, because there's so much across the type of music these guys did, from doing their own stuff to doing like a little bit of covers to doing stuff with Bob Dylan, and then with The Last Waltz, even for them performing with other musicians. These were guys were just it's in the title of their name. These guys weren't, didn't have like show off that they were like glamorous rock stars. They didn't have to prove for instance, like groups like Kiss or something like that, or like even Keith Richards and Mick Jagger to hone the spotlight to show that they were the star. They were already the stars, by the way their music was out there. And all that stuff. And I don't even think they know how big of a legends they actually really were, and all that. So we've got so coming at number 8, we've got one of my favorites, and it's if you look online, and some people consider this one of their best songs ever, which is Chest Fever, and Chest Fever was on Music from Big Pink. That is also credited to Robbie Robertson, but there is also of course a little bit of a songwriting dispute about that, because a lot of the songs are credited to Robertson, but it was always like a group effort in a sense. And Jess Beaver was sung by Richard Manuel, even though definitely Levon Helm accompanies him, and you can definitely hear Levon at times, like where sometimes you think it's actually, they do a good job blending their voices together, because sometimes you think it's actually Levon singing, but it's actually Richard Manuel singing. But it's definitely it's such a funny song, because it's like the lyrics are unusual. It's basically, of course, I think referring to in some ways, the title's in it too, of course, like Chest Fever is about a guy who just like this woman who is like all over him and all that stuff, and I think he's grown tired of it in a sense, and and also too, it's just like how it starts off with this the organ, and that's why this is probably one of Garth Hudson's best type of songs that describes how much of a multi-instrumentalist and talented guy he was, with the opening organ, just like coming at you, like you're in a church and you don't know what to expect, and then all of a sudden it just comes rising up, and then the bass, and then the whole band gets going like the bum ba bum ba. Okay, yeah. But you get what I'm doing. But and then of course when Richard and Levon go into their thing and all that stuff, it's perfect, and all that. And my laptop just went dark. Of course, yeah. All right. For those who are listening, just want to describe that too. All right. And Robbie Robertson also has explained that with this song that the lyrics were kind of unusual, and if you love this song, it's because of Garth Hudson, because of the type of, or because his playing is all over the place, and the organ is just so powerful on this, and like tuba and all that stuff, which also too was the help of, in this album they had a producer, John Simon, who was also would play tuba, or for some of their songs when they need them like kind of like a horn section and all that stuff, that would be like kind of sometimes interplay between John Simon and Garth Hudson. But also too, but the dispute with the song too is that like Robertson, like that, like, he didn't really write the lyrics, in the sense that like, the lyrics were kind of improvised, and like, like Richard and Levon were bringing out phrases and lyrics to saying, and so was Robertson too. But it's definitely one of their unusual songs, but it's one of their great songs too. It's a really fun tune. It's not a serious song, but if you ever want to just like have a laugh, or just listen to a song that's kind of funny but like is hard rocking and coming at you, then Jess Beaver is your song. So now we got coming at number 7, we got Up on Cripple Creek. Now this is, of course, another well-known song from them, which is sung by Levon and all that stuff, one of the classics. So they also performed this song on the Ed Sullivan Show too in 1969. This is one of it's of course like I feel like it's definitely one of their like overplayed songs or all that stuff. I'm not gonna like go on a limb and say it's totally like overrated, but I think it needs to be in this list, I feel like. But it's definitely, I think some people would probably even consider it a number 3 or number 2, but for me I'd consider it number 7. It's definitely a song that needs to be mentioned, just because it's like, it definitely does have a great sound to it. And of course the phrasing and the sound, like up on Cripple Creek, she sends me if I sprain a leak. Just that type of wordplay is really fun. It's like one of those other like type of fun, like kind of like tongue twisters even to say, even because that's like with Jess Beaver, I feel like it's got a lot of tongue twisters and all that stuff, and they were good with, I think using those kind of phrases, or like, they talked about that they use like witty puns and stuff in songs and all that. But so coming at number 6, we've got I Shall Be Released, and that ended the Music from Big Pink album, and it's sung by Richard Manuel and in a falsetto voice, and it was written by Bob Dylan. And Bob Dylan had a big influence on the band, considering that they were his backing band at one time, and that's kind of how they came up with the name, because when they went on the stage, it was always like Bob Dylan Band. They're like, why don't we just call ourselves the band? So Bob Dylan helped them out with their first album. He actually did the art, the cover art for that too. He did a painting for that. He also had like other few songs that were on the album as well. But this is a song that he wrote, and Richard Manuel sings it beautifully. The harmonies are great. The piano work. Of course, the instrumentation, the bass on it is really good. Like the bass line, if you really like listen to it, like the bass is really something to take a listen to and really like kind of analyze. Because for me, I'm like, when I listen to a song, and many times I need to hear different parts of it, like that I didn't hear before, and that's mostly like, I think in some ways like the instrumentation for that. And so now at number 5, we've got King Harvest. And that's a song that ends the band album, and it's of course sung by Richard Manuel. Because Richard Manuel closed the album on both of those things, and he also opened it, which we'll get to in a second as well. But King Harvest is a great song. It starts off like it's one of those other songs. Like when I first heard it, it sounded like it was Levon Helmsley, because he sings, he accompanies him in the beginning, and at like when it kind of like goes to Manuel's like soul voice, it kind of sounded like it was Levon at times, and I think like Richard Manuel at times could sometimes sound both like Levon Helm and also Rick Danko as well, at times, in their vocal style. Like, sometimes it's like, they all had their different type of style. Like, Levon was very, and sometimes like a raspy kind of, gentle. Richard Manuel could go to falsetto. He could bring up a notch to his to a low voice, but also stick in like a mid range too. And Rick Danko had a very much of like a trembling type of presence in his voice, when he's saying and all that stuff. A little bit of tremble and stuff like that kind of worked, or a little bit of like, not stumbling, but more of like a little bit of more of like a bubbly type of, sound in his voice. But yeah, no. So, King Harvest is one of those other songs that is a storytelling song. This album represented a lot of stuff of, some Americana stuff, going back to like Midwest, writing characters from, like the 19th century and all that stuff. And, because these guys were from Canada, yet they were able to come up with these stories of stuff from the U.S. and all that stuff, from their experience when they were touring with Ronnie Hawkins, because when they first performed with Ronnie Hawkins as the Hawks, and they performed in, like, the Deep South, and they were able to, like, write their depictions of it, and, from, history in the past and all that stuff. But, yeah, it's, like, it's about a union worker and all that stuff, and, it's kind of like, it's definitely in the song too, like if you want to know the story, but just like goes over, about a farmer's life and all that stuff, talking about the hard times and all that stuff. But yeah, it works well. And then coming at number 4, we've got, of course, Rag Mama Rag, and that's another great Levon Helm tune. It's got a great horn section, and also too, and a little bit, like a little bit of those like violins, a little bit of that, jug band sound a little bit in the beginning, and then the drums are a little bit heavy in the beginning, and then Levon just goes into like a fast-paced type of voice too. With phrases like "gonna turn you loose like a lawn a goose," and so just a very funny, like, kind of like romance song, almost like Jamaica Surrender. That was kind of like in the same realm of that too. Because like also too, a thing I forgot to mention with Jamaica Surrender, like that, like was very like they had like double entendres of like sexual innuendos, like "I'll play all night for you," So, Rag Mama Rag is a really great tune, honestly. And just very, fast paced, I've got that really good, the tuba in it too, and all that stuff works well, and it's just really great. It's, like I forget if there's a string section, but just it's got that, like that brass section, a little bit of, I think it's a little bit of like an orchestral section in the beginning, just bring up. It might be more of like the horns and stuff like that. Because it's like I've heard this out many times, but when you hear it, it's like you can hear different things. Like you wonder, like, oh wait, was that actually a clarinet, or oh, was that a clavinet, or was that like, oh, a tuba, or what? It was a saxophone. You can hear it in different times, and then when you realize, oh no, it was this different instrument or different thing. Your mind can play a different thing. I mean, like the song can be in my head now and stuff like that too. Another thing that comes into my mind with that song is just how it's a 2-minute song that goes into talking about that does a great way of ending it in a sense, by changing it up a little in the way of the tone of the singer's voice, because the first 2 voices are in the same type of tone and all that, but to kind of, I feel like, indicate that it's going to the end, that's why it's good that, Levon's saying, like, like, Levon changes the tone a little of the voice, and it's like the band is able to, like, able to close it well by fading it out, and I think that works well, too. And then, like, that little piano thing at the end, yeah. But no, so very, also too, it's very, ragtime stuff too, Rag Mama Rag. Okay, so coming at number 3, we've got Tears of Rage. Now, Tears of Rage is a great tune. That, of course, is another song written by Bob Dylan, but Richard Manuel also wrote it as well. it's credited that Bob Dylan wrote the lyrics and Richard Manuel wrote the music, and all that. And it starts off the music from Big Pink album, so it's another, opener from Richard Manuel. And he starts these albums great, like with these songs. And then, of course, Levon sings, the juicy stuff in the middle. I think and I think it works well, But, no. So in this song, it starts off with this great, just like, a little bit of like a sour organ, just like a wham, 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 but yeah, and then, comes in right at you and all that stuff with, Manuel's voice, and he just like kind of he just brings more, glory to it, and glamour to it, of the way he goes into the song, and singing it in an emotional way of like Tears of Rage, so he does a good job of capturing the emotion of sadness and all that, and like when you hear the song, it's like one of those songs that like everybody's got to shut up and just like you just got to listen to it. It's like you're just listening. Like when it comes on, you've just got to listen to it in the car, or if whenever it comes on or wherever you play it, you just got to like stop and just hear it. And of course, there's harmonies on it between him and Rick Danko and all that, because Rick does a good job at, of course, like I said, the harmonies, and just the way he sings it. And he also sang at Woodstock and all that stuff too. And when Richard Manuel does it live too, it's great because like he had this, I think, performance kind of. I think he had this kind of like presence where when he performed, he was just able to like make the whole room shine, when he was able to have his chance at singing. And I think, like when the piano comes at him, it's like you're looking at, you're just in awe of this guy, and all that. So, definitely, this is definitely a song that is in my top 5, and of course that's why it is ranked at number 3. So coming at number 2 and number 1 it's probably not a big surprise to you of what these two are, considering I haven't mentioned it before. If you are a big band fan and all that stuff, or a big fan of classic rock in the 60s, and your music and your facts. So coming at number 2, we got The Night They Drove Old Dixie Down, which is, of course, considered a classic song from the band. Now, I want to address the elephant in the room for a while of what the song is. So the song is a fictional story, like I say, Robbie Robertson writes, like kind of like I had this mental picture of a movie in his mind, and this is about the Confederates in the Civil War, like the glory of the Confederates during the Civil War, and it's an interesting song because you wonder how does it how is it relevant today? How would it work today, in this time and all that stuff? And I saw this interview of a guy talking about that with Robbie Robertson, of like, what was going in his mind when he wrote the song. And he explained that when he was, performing with Ronnie Hawkins, they went to the Mississippi Delta, and this was a guy from Canada and all that stuff. And, he was, his favorite artists from the blues and rock, of course, were African American, and all that. And, he was just, he talked about how he just, adored them and just, like, was in awe of them and and all that stuff. And, the same with the other guys, too. And Levon, like when he was with Levon in Arkansas, his father had different views and all that. And one time, Robbie Robertson met Levon's father, and Levon's father said to him, apparently, the way Robbie Robertson describes it in this Sirius interview, in the Sirius Max interview in 2019, that the father said to him, and he called him Robin instead of Robbie or something like that, and so he was like, Robin, one day the South will rise again, and it horrified him, of course, and he like a few years later when they were doing the band, that line came in his head, and it just, this whole movie came out of this guy named Virgil Caine and all that stuff, and he said he wrote it on a piano and all that, and he had to write it quietly, kind of, because his daughter was sleeping in the next room, so he had to kind of write it very very quietly and all that. But no, so it's very very an interesting tune. And I think what's interesting about it is like these guys were from a different Canada. They weren't part of the U.S. and stuff like that, so they were able to kind of like adapt these things. And like also coming from a guy who wrote this, who is half Native American and also Jewish as well. It's interesting that they were able to capture that really hard harsh area of history, and all that stuff, and but able to capture it well of what their experience from the South, and all that stuff. So yeah, it's definitely an interesting story in that sense. And it's definitely an interesting song, and definitely I think one of their classics, and shows the ability of storytelling, and that music can be movies and all that stuff as well. I think is a great example of that. That they can show harsh movies, they can show movies in different points of views and all that stuff. And I think that's because film and music and stories, they're all over the place. Some are happy, some are bad, but showing different points of views of people who even have the wrong views and all that stuff. I think it can be clever, and it can be played right. And if it's played right, then it works well. If it and all that. So that's my thoughts on that. It's definitely one of their greatest songs, I think. So definitely deserves the number 2 spot. And coming at number 1, we've got which if you are not even a band fan and you notice, it is called The Wait. So The Wait is a really great song. It works, so well. And I mean, even the title, how so simple it is. But what can I not say about The Wait? It's got this great, banjo, opening kind of thing, with like these little guitar licks. And then, the drums and the rest of the band comes in, and then, Levon sings this great tune again, and all that. And, he just sings it perfectly. It's basically, an interesting thing about the story is it's just, a fictional story of a guy who's coming into town, and, this guy's asking him if he can do him a favor and, say hi to this person, and then it comes to a favor of saying hi, and that's why it's called The Wait, and it's take a load off Annie, take a load for free, and it's like, and then you put the load on me, which it's funny, because I always felt like it's funny, because it's like, wouldn't that be the time they put the weight in it? You put the weight on me, you would think, and it's funny, that they use that, but, The Load does not sound like a better title, honestly. The Wait works better as a title, and honestly, it's like, it's in the song, it just tells you, what it is, that, oh, this is a weight on this guy's shoulder, and all that, and, Levon sings it great. Another thing I really love to mention is the harmonies between Rick Danko and Richard Manuel in the chorus. It sounds so beautiful and all that stuff. And I think the thing that's interesting about their harmonies were that these guys definitely had their own distinct sound and their own type of thing. And they could do songs without the others and not always needing harmonies. But these guys were kind of solo individuals that when their voices blended together, it worked, It worked completely. And, Rick Danko also has a part at the end, because there's about 5 verses, and Rick Danko sings the 4th verse. And, because it's funny, because it was it's a very interesting thing how it goes from one character to the next. And, I remember I had to look up, I was like, oh, who sings that part? And it's like, oh, it's Rick Danko. Because it comes out of nowhere, because, you're hearing Levon, and then and then it goes to Rick Danko. But then, of course, then they sing the 5th verse together. And, no, it's just, it's a classic, too. And I mentioned this, too, on one of my videos, but, when they performed this in the last waltz with the Staple Singers, it was a rehearsal performance, and the Staple Singers, of course, are a masterpiece, and just wonderful, have a wonderful catalog in their own right, and the band admired them and loved their music and all that, and they performed they performed The Wait, and Mavis Staple, apparently at the end of the song, she just says beautiful, and she just was beautiful, because it just sounded so beautiful. And it's like, and another thing that I'd like to mention about the Wait too is that 2 years ago, Robbie Robertson and Ringo Starr from the Beatles were involved in this kind of like charity type of benefit, and they did a version of the Wait around, like, with other people around the globe and all that stuff, and it was like this virtual performance, and it was before actually COVID too, and the way they do it is just great too. Robbie Robertson and Ringo Starr still got it with the the guitar and the drum, like they just play the instruments on it, and they let the other people sing the song, and I think the thing is just that each version is so beautiful. It's a very, music has this sense, this power. It really is magic, and it really can really make you hook you and make you like make your day better, or just put you in a trance and be like, oh my god, this is just like, what am I listening to? And The Wait is one of those songs, It's just like the way the melody comes in. Is it the most beautiful song? Is it a song about love? No, of course. But the melody convinces you, and honestly, it manipulates you to thinking it's a beautiful song and just like these beautiful masterpiece lyrics, and because the music does a great job with it, and also the vocals too from Levon work well with it too. And, of course, there's another songwriting controversy with this, that apparently, because, of course, it's credited, again, of course, to Robbie Robertson, like most of these songs on the list. But, with this song, Robbie Robertson, it was claimed in Levon Helm's book, I think, in 1993. He wrote a book talking about, his kind of bitter, attitude towards Robertson. And he wrote that, Robertson wrote, that he believes that Robertson wrote about 60% of the lyrics, but 20% each should go to Richard Manuel and Rick Danko, a little bit of himself for the lyrics, and that Garth Hudson wrote most of the music and all that stuff, put all the music together. And in some ways, what I've realized about with Robbie Robertson, of what he did, was not wrong by crediting himself, because most of the other guys just did more of the arranging, and the arranger doesn't always have to get credit when they write the song, but Robbie Robertson was like a guy who could put these stuff together, but just didn't give credit when it was due. And honestly, for a guy who does call them his brothers, it's a little, kind of greed and shady at times. But yeah, no. I mean, like I said, this song I think shows, all five of them, like that all five of them had like a unit, Levon sings well as, the lead singer, and Rick Danko too, add in his vocal part, and then even the harmonies with him and Richard Manuel, and Robbie Robertson's guitar playing, and, Garth Hudson just laying it all together with the organ, and all that stuff, and just putting it all, making sure it sounds great by adding that type of feel. And it's just this, it's like the best way to describe The Wait is a sound that you need to hear immediately. So that is my list for today for the band. Definitely subscribe to me at my YouTube channel, Tom Radigan. Also too, this podcast will be going out on Oswego's radio station, and also it will be going on other platforms too, as I hope as time goes on, while this gets while this gets released, and all that stuff. So no. So for the next episode, we are going to be talking about the top 10 Crosby, Stills, Nash, and Young songs, and I'll be looking forward to see you wherever that is. All right, bye.